Hi everybody, this is Professor Paul Hicks welcoming you back to Introduction to Philosophy. So previously we talked about what philosophy actually is and what we're trying to do in philosophy. Now what I want to talk to you about is the methodology that philosophers employ in order to answer the types of questions that philosophers are trying to answer. You might think, as many people do, that philosophy is answering or attempting to answer questions that can't be answered. I want to challenge that. I want to think that, we actually can have good reasons to believe whatever it is that, we're trying to believe. And there's bad reasons. And so how do I know what the good reasons are versus the bad reasons? Well, the way that philosophers work is we employ arguments. And that's what, remember, we talked about last time, was logic is one of the branches of philosophy, and logic studies arguments. So that's what we're going to do a little bit of right now. So, arguments. What is an argument? When I typically ask students this question, they'll say something along the lines of, something like, my wife and I were in a big argument last night. That's not what we're talking about in philosophy when we talk about arguments, right? When you're talking about, maybe my wife and I got into an argument last night, what that really means is that we were fighting, right? Something like that. An argument in philosophy is not fighting. It's not a disagreement between two people or anything like that. An argument in philosophy is going to be reasons for accepting a certain statement, a certain point of view, right? And so what's happening is somebody's trying to tell you this is what you should believe, and you should believe it for these reasons. And if you're a rational person, you would accept these reasons. At least that's what they're going to say. So an argument is a set of statements such that one statement is supported by the others, right? An argument is a set of statements such that one statement is supported by the others. Now, I'm going to use the word claim and statement interchangeably here, so you could say an argument is a set of claims such that one claim is supported by the others as well. They're both correct. All right, so let's think about arguments here for just a bit. So let's look at a very classic arguments here. All men are mortal. Socrates is a man. Therefore, Socrates is mortal. Now, that's a pretty good argument, right? This is a set of statements. One of the statements is said to be supported by the others. The first two statements are what we call premises. The last statement is what we call a conclusion. Now, how do we define these types of statements? All right, a premise. A premise is a supporting statement in an argument. A conclusion is the supported statement in an argument. All right, that is what somebody is attempting to prove to you based off the premises. So, let's go back here to the argument here for just a bit. Statements 1 and 2 are premises, and statement 3 is the conclusion. Now, going back to the argument itself, notice that if you accept those two first statements, premise 1 and premise 2, you really are, rationally speaking, committed to the third, right? So you have somebody here that's trying to prove to you that Socrates is mortal, and they're giving you two reasons to accept that. Now, would we just say that, hey, it's just a matter of opinion that Socrates is mortal? No, based upon some pretty good reasons, we are saying Socrates is mortal. All right, this is going to be important because we're going to get into arguments in this class about, say, the existence of God, or what is the morally right thing to do, or what is the wrong thing to do, what is justice, how should I act? We're going to talk about these types of questions, and we're going to need to have arguments for why you should accept one perspective over another. So, for example, Aquinas is going to give you 5 arguments in favor of the existence of God. All right? So, arguments. Arguments are a set of statements such that one statement is supported by the others. They are made up of 2 different types of statements. We have premises and we have a conclusion. All right? Next, I want to talk about 2 different types of arguments. Deductive arguments and inductive arguments. So what do those statement or those terms really mean? So a deductive argument is one where if the premises are true, it's structured in such a way as to give 100% support to the conclusion. That is, the conclusion is supposed to be guaranteed. The argument we just talked about with all men are mortal, Socrates is a man, therefore Socrates is mortal, that is a deductive argument, because if those first two premises are true, that third statement, the conclusion, must be true. So another way of understanding an argument is not deductive. That is what we're going to call inductive. An inductive argument is going to be one where if the premises are true, it's more likely than not that the conclusion is true, but there's absolutely no guarantee. So look at this next argument here. If I was to say most Greeks like olive oil, and Socrates is Greek, therefore it's likely Socrates likes olive oil. Now notice those two premises could be true and that conclusion false, right? So even if we were to say that 95% of Greeks like olive oil, isn't it possible that Socrates is in the 5% that doesn't like olive oil? That's a logical possibility here, right? So the proof that we have is a little bit weaker than a deductive argument. That is, there's no absolute guarantee, but it's still pretty good reasoning, isn't it? I mean, we're still giving you reasons for why you should support a given conclusion. So an inductive argument is one which is structured in such a way as to provide, at best, only strong support to the conclusion itself. You're never going to get an actual guarantee. All right, so now we have those two types of arguments down, deductive and inductive. I want to introduce to you a concept called logical strength. All right, so when we're analyzing for an argument, one of the things we're going to do is to try to determine that if the premises are true, then the conclusion should be true. Now notice I said if the premises are true. I'm not saying the premises are true. What I'm saying is that if they are true, then the conclusion should be true. And what we're doing is saying if certain premises are true, does it justify or provide enough support to the actual conclusion? In the case of a deductive argument, where you would say that the premises must provide total support to the conclusion. In the case of an inductive argument, we're going to say, is it more likely than not that the conclusion is true based on these given premises themselves? All right, so in a deductive argument, if it has logical strength, then we call it valid. All right, valid. A valid argument is one where it is logically impossible to have true premises and a false conclusion. It is logically speaking impossible to have true premises and a false conclusion. So the example I gave you about all men are mortal, Socrates is a man, therefore Socrates is mortal, that is a valid argument, right? You can't accept those two first statements without accepting the third. There's something would be really wrong in your thinking if you were to do such a thing. All right. Well, logical strength is also on the inductive side. If an argument is inductive and it has logical strength, we call it strong. So a strong argument is one where if the premises are true, it makes it more likely than not that the conclusion is true. But remember, because it is inductive, and by the nature of inductive, it cannot possibly give a total support guarantee, such as a valid deductive argument can. All right, so now that we understand logical strength, we need to determine if whether or not the statements are true, because who really cares if the premises support the conclusion if the premises are false? That's not going to help us do anything. So when you analyze an argument, the first thing you do is determine is it deductive or inductive. The next thing you're going to do is to determine is it valid or strong, that is, does it have logical strength? And the last thing you're going to do is, are the premises actually true? If it is a deductively valid argument and the premises are also true, then we call it sound. So a sound argument is necessarily a deductive argument. If it is an inductive argument, it is strong, and the premises are also true, we couldn't call it sound because sound requires validity, and an inductive argument can never be valid. So, and when we talk about an inductive argument, that is strong and has true premises, we call it cogent. All right? So for the rest of this course, if I say the word cogent, you understand I'm talking about an inductive argument, and if I say the word sound, then I'm talking about a deductive argument. Okay, so what is it that you're going to need to know for this course? What is an argument? Remember, an argument is a set of statements such that one statement is supported by the other. What type of statements are in an argument? There are premises and there are conclusions. What type of arguments are there? There are inductive and deductive. If it has logical strength, it's deductive and valid. If it has logical strength and inductive, it's strong. If it is a valid argument and have true premises, it is sound. If it is a strong argument and has true premises, it is cogent. All right. So do you think you have arguments down here for just a little bit? Let's go ahead and think about different passages and try to determine whether or not they are actual arguments. So for example, if I was to say, Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. Jack fell down and broke his crown, and Jill came tumbling after. That's not an argument, right? If somebody says that to you, are they trying to prove something to you? No. It's what we call a narrative. It's this happened, then this occurred, then this occurred, and then this occurred. All right? There's no actual argument there because nobody's trying to prove something to you. Compare it now to Fuzzy Wuzzy was a bear. Fuzzy Wuzzy had no hair. Fuzzy Wuzzy wasn't very fuzzy, was he? Now let's take that passage. Is somebody trying to prove something to you? I think so. They're trying to prove to you that Fuzzy Wuzzy is not fuzzy. Are they giving you reasons to hold that Fuzzy Wuzzy is not fuzzy? Yes. That Fuzzy Wuzzy had no hair. Now there's of course a missing premise in there that in order to be fuzzy one must have hair. But they're giving you reasons to accept a conclusion, and it is therefore the Fuzzy Wuzzy passage is in fact an argument. All right? All right. So go through the reading. If you have any questions, please go ahead and email me, and I look forward to talking to you again. All right. Have a good day.